Hello everyone, my name is Caden and welcome back to more Chaos Head Noah. Last time, we ended off on seeing the 5th new gen crime having officially been confirmed. Except now it's been someone that Takumi actually knows, being Dr. Takashina. Apparently, for about 10 days I think, he had his brain taken out. 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 And then he just couldn't live. He, well, I mean, obviously he couldn't live, but he didn't die from the brain being taken out. He died because he couldn't, feed himself or, take care of himself anymore. So, yeah. But now it seems like we may be at somebody else's perspective, or at the very least, we're somewhere else. So, let's continue, shall we? Again, I'm still using a new sound mixer, so if audio doesn't sound the loudest or whatever, I apologize. Still figuring this out. Whenever night fell, Miyashita Park always found itself engulfed in a peculiar air. Whose eyes are those eyes? Whose eyes are those eyes? Whose eyes are those eyes? Whose eyes? In the center of the park stood a large group of people packed together. There must have been no less than 100 of them. Most of them seemed to be in their teens, with some wearing high school uniforms, and others, particularly girls, wearing fashionable casual clothes. Within the crowd was an otaku-esque young man with glasses, and a Anguro high school girl, the latter of which was a fairly rare sight in this day and age. From an outsider's perspective, one would think that they were attending some kind of event, but upon closer inspection, it became clear that their behavior was anything but normal. They were all looking at the ground, their eyes unfocused and empty. Even though quite a number of people were gathered here, none of them conversed with each other. They simply stood there, frozen in place. Every last one of them wore the same faint smile, all while murmuring something under their breaths. A phrase that their whole bodies and minds were dedicated to saying. Whose eyes are those eyes? That phrase seeped from the mouths of the 100 people there. Despite their smiles, the chant rose as nothing more than a flat, emotionless murmur, echoing throughout the park like a Buddhist sutra. Naturally, due to the bizarre state that the people there were under, no one else was roaming Miyashita Park. A female officer a female office worker on her way home from work, and a middle-aged woman walking her dog attempted to pass through, only to find themselves terrified by the strange sight and turning back the way they came. There was only a single man who was paying close attention to that peculiar group. At first glance, it appeared that he too was part of the group, but in actuality, he was standing alone a few meters away from it. And considering his choice in clothing, the man would have blended in quite well in Akihabara. He wore a plaid shirt, deeply worn sneakers, mittens, a red bandana, and a large green rucksack. He was fairly corpulent, which made the buttons on his shirt appear as though they were about to come off. It was late in October, so while the air should have been quite cool, the man's forehead was covered in sweat. In constant war against this, the man attempted to wipe it away with a towel, but to no avail. He looked around restlessly, seemingly unable to calm down, and yet from the way his shoulders moved, he almost appeared as if he was laughing. Ever since they had begun, accompanying the sutra-like chants was a distinct mechanical sound, the origin of which was the man's rucksack. Oh! Wait a minute! This is the same guy that was... I remember back when, friggin' Takumi's sister, whose name I'm suddenly blanking out for some reason. When they were acting strange, there was a guy with a rucksack. That was him. Whatever's in that man's rucksack is causing people to act strange like this. Another high schooler, this one wearing a blazer, entered the park. Instead of flinching at the sight of the peculiar group, she kept her eyes locked onto them as she steadily approached. The way she walked, her long black hair fluttering in the wind, gave off an aura of pure confidence and gallantry. And somewhat of a contrast to this, the girl carried a half-eaten popsicle in her hand. The group paid her no mind. They were completely absorbed in their own world, continuing to repeat the same phrase over and over again. Being ignored did not faze her either. She did not even raise an eyebrow. Then, as she was drawing closer to the group, she suddenly stopped. She nibbled at the popsicle while remaining thoroughly composed. As she chewed, the distinct sound of crunching escaped her mouth. When she finished eating, the girl looked at the stick left behind by the treat, clicked her tongue, and tossed it away at her feet. Later! Her eyes sharp as ever, her gaze slowly moved over the faces of each individual in the group.
What are you doing?
The man with the rucksack shouted at her, the girl now clearly beyond the limit of what he could ignore. He's confused that she's not being controlled, isn't he? Whatever's in his rucksack seemingly has this ability to control people. We saw a brief example of it back with Nanami. Oh, now I remember the name, Nanami. We saw a brief example with Nanami where she thought she was just going to go see her parents before crossing the street and almost getting hit by a car. But this is part of what that Saki's holding can do. But for some reason, it's not working on Sena. Naturally, the girl, Aoi Sena, was well aware that the man had been watching her since she had arrived. With a mocking snort, she abruptly crossed her hands over each other, then strained her arms out in front of her. D-sword. Then, the area between her hands warped faintly, and the vague shape of a metal rod appeared. It looked similar to a hoe or a shovel, but the shape matched neither of those descriptions. It was a razor-sharp sword, with a bifurcated blade. After a moment, it took on a definite shape, and Sena grasped it with both her hands. However, it did not end there. Immediately after, a blue light illuminated both sides of the sword Sena was holding, as well as the air directly to the right of her where it was pointed. Oh dear. Just as before, metal pieces appeared from that glowing blue space. As they took shape, they noisily fused with the long blade that had appeared before them. At last, a ring formed one from which another long trail of light streaked far to the right. The bifurcated blade traced the trail's trajectory as it came into being. Though one might have originally thought it to be a hoe or a shovel, it was now clear that it had transformed into a gigantic sword. Sharp yet elegant, translucent yet destructive, sinister yet beautiful. With an overwhelming sense of presence, the sword settled in Sena's hands. The man with the rucksack showed no reaction. He simply stared at Sena with a malicious look on his face.
You got nothing to do with this. Get out of here.
With a voice quite high-pitched for a man, he had ordered Sena to leave, accompanying it with a violent gesture. His tone was thoroughly domineering, though he kept his distance from her. Sena, on the other hand, opened her mouth without showing any shift in emotion. Are you the one responsible for this? It seemed to be more of a request for confirmation rather than an actual question. She rotated her gaze toward the man with the rucksack, locking him in place. In response, the man showed clear signs of fluster, providing a fierce contrast to what he had displayed before them. I need an answer. Where is Hatano? The man, too paralyzed by fear, was unable to act nor answer her question. The group of people muttering whose eyes are those eyes paid no attention to the exchange between the two. Rather, their eyes did not even register it. Sena's gaze met with the man's. The first to avert their eyes was him.
Who was that? Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you.
Oh dear. Remaining silent, Sena branched a great sword she was holding in both hands in a Kasumi no Kamae stance. She then slowly lowered her hips, and then she cast her upper body forward. I'm sorry, a what? Perica, fictional unit currency that appears in a certain manga. Don't know. Brain death. Well, I guess we can read that. A condition in which all cognitive functions have ceased, but heart function is still maintained via artificial respiration. There are two types of brain death. Total brain death, where the cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem all cease to function, and brainstem death, where only the brainstem ceases function. A vegetative state is often misunderstood as a form of unconsciousness in which there is a loss of some or all cerebral functions. But in actuality, the brainstem and the cerebellum are still functional, and spontaneous breathing is possible as well. Even so, there is an extremely rare chance of recovery from a vegetative state. In Japan, there are laws and regulations in place to determine whether or not a person can be determined legally brain dead. The following 5 items are those regulations, each of which are checked twice with sufficient time between each check. The patient is in 1 is the patient is in a deep coma. 2 is the pupils are dilated and fixed. 3 is that there are no reflexes from the brainstem. 4 is that the patient's brain waves are flat. And 5 is spontaneous breathing has ceased. Okay. Kasumi no Kamae, translated as mist stance, it is a type of stance utilized in sword fights. The sword is held horizontally, with the hilt beside the face and the tip of the sword pointed toward the opponent. It is a stance often employed in many ancient styles of swordsmanship. The sword was held at eye level for the purpose of severing the eyes of the opponent with a single horizontal strike. It is said that the name comes from the opponent's vision going blurry, hence the word kasumi, mist. Interesting. So, a bit of a weird question. Is this technically the type of stance that, you know, Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth? You know how he has that large sword? I think it's called the Masamune. You know how he like stands with it? Is that technically is this technically the stance that's being used by him? This Kasumi no Kamae or whatever you call it? That's cool if so. I don't know if it is, but I'm just assuming because he holds the sword with like the hilt by his face. Ace. Always holding it horizontally. Part of me always just figured it was because the sword was so long that he had to hold it that way for it being the only way of holding that sword. Why did it turn red? Or pink? I'm not sure. That's pink, actually. Yeah, that's definitely pink. Why did it turn pink? Don't be mistaken. The sword emitted light once more. But unlike before, what it released was not a blue light, but a light blending together a fierce purple and red. What is happening? Suddenly a high-pitched screech resembling a woman's scream resounded. The atmosphere between her and the man was warped with anger. But not in the metaphorical manner. It was entirely physical. The very air itself vibrated, converging toward the sword Sana was holding. The red glow of the sword became inconceivably intense, to the point of dazzlement. Sana took a small breath and gritted her teeth. Are you about to kill this man? Yes, you are. I think. A booming sound roared. A shower of sparks surged. A sonic wave erupted, one that sought to blow away the air itself. The vibration in the air then immediately subsided. The sword, however, continued to flicker with a brilliant red glow, one reminiscent of pulsing blood. Sana slowly pointed the tip of her sword directly at the man. As one would expect, the previously indifferent group started showing signs of agitation. Bewildered, they all started running away as if they had returned to their senses. I'm assuming that whatever she did basically broke the trance that the man had put everyone in. Sana paid them no mind. She simply kept her eyes locked on the single man with the rucksack. The man, who until now had shown no clear signs of fear, began to panic. Yeah, all the power he had was in that rucksack. It was causing people to be forced into that weird trance, but the D-sword seemingly can cut through that trance, freeing people from it. He started taking a few steps back, his face turning pale. He shook his head in denial. Wait! I really don't know what... Tano, guys! I was just told to... I said, don't be mistaken. Sana did not even remotely entertain the man's supplications. I only asked so I didn't have to say hello. Regardless of what you said, I've destroyed it. I'd have destroyed it anyway. A fierce glitter dwelled within her eyes. The man shrieked pitifully, turned on his heel, and attempted to flee. However, the group, which had only just dispersed, was now running away in confusion. His escape route blocked, the man, who had grown far beyond frantic, stopped dead in his tracks. And at that very moment, Sana kicked off the ground and closed the gap between her and the man's back. Is she about to... I think that answers my Oh. Oh. Huh. Why is he a robot? What? It was a blow so swift. It was hard to conceptualize that it had come from Sana's slender arms. The blade swept horizontally, shredding the rucksack the man was carrying. Oh, wait. No, the man... Sorry. No, the man wasn't dead. That was the rucksack. I thought it looked like a person. The impact blew the man away. He collapsed to the ground and curled into a ball, covering his head with his hands. Having lost the will to flee, all the man could do was tremble. His groin was now sodden, the man having become incontinent out of fear. Sana walked over to the man and, without paying him any mind, gazed down at the contents of the destroyed rucksack. A collection of small sparks spurted out from within, emitting a crackling sound. There was a device inside. Its shape might have originally called to mind a device once sized larger than a modem, but after getting demolished by Sana's D-sword, it was now in pieces. It could not be of any use anymore. The deafening mechanical sound that had been coming from within the rucksack could no longer be heard. I thought it looked like a person at first, honestly. Nozomi. So what is Nozomi's goal here? Evidently Nozomi's the one who's trying to do all this shady stuff. But what's the purpose? Why exactly would they bother with doing all this shady stuff? Muttering to no one in particular, Sana's voice oozed with hatred. Numbskull. As fall moved forward, it had gradually been getting colder outside. The fact that I'd been able to go out in short-sleeved shirt only a few days ago felt unreal. The color of the sky was also somewhat dull. Its previously bright tints seemed to be fading. If you went to a park, you'd be able to see the vibrant autumn leaves sprouting from the trees. Maybe they were sucking the color from the sky. As I looked up toward that sky, I jammed my toothbrush in my mouth. The nice thing about my base was that I had no eyes on me. I could do anything I wanted on the roof without fear of other people's scrutiny. It was also fairly spacious, giving it a nice open feel. My sink was located outside of my container, which allowed me to brush my teeth outside when the weather was nice. It was pretty inconvenient when it rained, though. As I rubbed my sleepy eyes, I moved my toothbrush around my mouth and thought back to what happened the day prior. And again, I mentioned it before, but I still think that Rimi herself might just be one big delusion. One big delusion that Takumi ended up conjuring to make himself feel safe. Because he's scared. Scared of everything that's been happening. To the point where, again, she appears... Again, I mentioned it before, but she appears every single time that Takumi needs help. She looks exactly like... suspiciously like Seraton. Or whatever, or Takumi calls her. I think it's Seraton. The point is, she looks suspiciously like Sarah. She suddenly just appears without any prior warning. So I think she's one big delusion. There's only one bigger problem. Again, I mentioned before about the whole, like, why would she be chosen as, like, to look like a murderer at first? But I want to move past that problem, because there's a different one I actually realized later. If she's a delusion, then why is everyone else acting like she's normal? Why is, like, say, Misumi acting like she's always been there? If she's a delusion, then surely Misumi would be not reacting to her or be questioning Takumi a lot more. Especially considering that Misumi and Rimi have active conversations. So, why is it that this delusion, that I assume it is, can interact with things? Is it simply because of how delusions are seemingly working? Did Rimi truly become a delusion? Like, did Rimi the delusion become Rimi a real person, and reality just adjusted to conform to her existence? Even after everything, Rimi had stayed in my room until late at night. She even held my hand until I finally calmed down, which had taken at least an hour. Although, I should clarify that nothing actually happened between us before she'd gone home. Two people of the stop it. If I had the skills to carry out conversations like that, I would have gained normie status a long time ago. Jesus Christ, why was I like this? A part of me wanted this bullshit sexual gratification. The part of me that wanted this bullshit sexual gratification made me want to puke. Rimi was genuinely trying to help me, and it was a friend, nothing more. She'd already done a lot for me just by saying I'll stay by your side. That alone had made me feel leagues better. Having just that pillar of support made a tremendous difference. Despite the gut-wrenching murder of Dr. Takashina in the numbskull case, I'd found myself feeling pretty stable after the night had passed. I will say, I am slowly but surely starting to think more and more that there is a good chance that Takumi might actually be a killer. With how easy it's, with how many different, with how real the possibility of manipulation is of people by controlling their senses, and considering the state that Takumi's been in this entire game, I think there's a decent chance that maybe he is the murderer. I think the thing that makes me most suspicious of him is everything we've learned since the crucifixion about how, like if I combine all my other thoughts with the crucifixion, it starts to feel like Takumi actually was the murderer. He had one of the, now, I don't know. I say that, but I just realized there's another thing that doesn't add up then, which is the stakes. Where exactly would Takumi get those stakes? They mentioned it before. Didn't they say something about the stakes being like a German model or something? If that's the case, then how on earth did Takumi get his hands on those? Oh no, there's a lot of oddities so far still. Maybe it was because my mind was preoccupied by the patents in the trial records I looked up yesterday. The power to project illusions onto reality. That's the other thing. At this point, it's hard to tell what in this game is real at this point. For all I know, everything that we know at the moment could just be fake, for all we know. Everything in this game could just be a fabrication, a delusion, pushed onto Takumi. Again, we also know how think back to the crucifixion case. We have two contradictory interpretations of how that happened. We have the version that Takumi saw, which is that a girl was seen stabbing a person's body all throughout with blood pouring everywhere. Like their body was just stabbed with 100 crosses. And then we have the police's interpretation, which is that it wasn't that there was blood everywhere, it was just that the guy was strangled and then crosses were used to simply hang his body up on the wall. But the crosses weren't actually piercing into his body, they were just being held on to clothes or just to keep his limbs propped in place, not to actually pierce through and nail him onto the wall. So again, we don't even know it's hard to even tell what about those. I don't know, is the police interpretation the real one? Or is Takumi's interpretation the real one? I don't know which interpretation is technically the delusion and which interpretation is the reality. My mind wants to say that the police's interpretation is real, but at the same time, I want to see the perspective of someone. Something that's been happening throughout this game is we've gone to other people's perspective. Something that I really want to happen that could help answer a lot of questions is I want to see another person's perspective of Takumi with Rimi, or at least another perspective of Takumi where he's definitely reacting to Rimi. Because I want to know if Takumi's reacting to Rimi and we are seeing it from another person's perspective, does this other person actually see Rimi? Or does it simply look like Takumi's talking to himself? That's what I want to know. I feel like that alone could help clarify some things. Does such a thing really exist? Was I being targeted by Shogun because I had the power to do so? If I did have that power, a childhood memory resurfaced. Yep. It was the day I hadn't been able to go on the field trip. The day where I'd been the only one not involved in a certain accident. The bus had crashed and several of my classmates were injured. And Mr. Saito, my teacher, had died. I remembered images of those things appearing vividly in my mind back then. I'd seen them, clear as day. Had it really just been foreknowledge? What if What if those images hadn't just been foreknowledge? What if they'd been a delusion of mine? What if I projected that delusion onto reality? If that's the case, then wouldn't that imply that this Shogun is somebody who wants revenge, maybe? If let's assume that Takami's the one on whose perception is right. Let's assume that's the case. If that's the case, then that would I feel like that would imply that Shogun is someone who's trying to take revenge on Takami for causing what happened to happen. That's what I would assume. I think. Although at this point, I'm not even too sure. My body threatened to start trembling, so I wrapped my arms around myself in an attempt to counter it. I might turn this up just a little. I might regret that, but we'll see. We'll see. If that's really true, then I'd be the cause of death. A murderer. Yep. Hello there. There's Rimi. Rimi was standing there. Despite how early in the morning it was, she was just as cheerful and energetic as always. The moment I saw her smile, the trembling I'd been unable to fight had suddenly ceased. That was odd. I used to get extremely uncomfortable whenever 3D girls were around me, but for some reason, I felt at ease now that Rimi was here.
I'm here to pick you up. Why is your mouth hanging open like that? You're gonna catch flies.
Oh, I understand now. According to the minimum attendance chart, I had to go to school today. I'd probably told Rimi about that.
She forgot I was coming?
Yeah, it had to be because of that. Because of Shogun, I've been too afraid to go out on my own, and that was when Rimi told me I'll stay by her side. She was keeping that promise.
Do you think I wouldn't actually come or something? Bishi. Well, sorry to disappoint, but you can't get rid of me that easily. I keep my promises.
Rimi winked mischievously at me. What a rogue was this? Stop it. I can't believe a girl from my class had come to pick me up. It was a scenario I would never have expected to happen in real life. If she wanted to make it genuinely top tier, stop. She barged into my room and woke me up. Stop it. While I cooked up idiotic delusions like that, Rimi looked up at the sky. That distant look of hers again.
The winter sky looks so lifeless. Why do you think that is?
Well, the sun's light is composed of 7 colors, the well-known colors of the rainbow. For those 7 colors to reach a human eye, they first have to pass through the Earth's atmosphere. When that happens, a phenomenon called scattering occurs. To put it simply, when light collides with the particles in the atmosphere, it gets refracted in several random directions. Since it gets refracted in random directions, it results in light traveling around a lot, and that's what makes it really easily observable for people. The colors that scare the most are purple and blue. That's why the sky is blue. I was so smart, I even impressed myself sometimes. However, while my answer was based on scientific fact, Rimi's came from emotions and romanticism.
I'm sure it's because of how cold it's become. And now everyone just looks down at the ground. Feels like fewer people wish to see that blue than ever.
I feel like I need to... I don't know how much I just ruined the audio. I feel like Rimi had already said something like that before. But when?
So even with cold it's gonna be, let's hold our heads up high and march onward.
Alright. I quickly changed clothes and left the Kurenai conference hall building with Rimi. Going to school together. For all intents and purposes, this was some normie shit. Shogun and Yua terrified me so much. I honestly wanted them to die. And I really meant that. Fucking KOIS, both of you, and yet, thanks to them, I'd been able to test out normiedom. Maybe I owed them more than I realized. I attempted to force myself to change how I felt about them, but Dr. Takashina's face resurfaced in my mind, and my good mood was instantly blown away. My doctor had been killed, and it could very well have been because of me. Shogun had killed a doctor I knew well, all to set an example or provoke me. I was hit with a wave of pure anxiety and dread. I began to gradually fall behind Rimi. Looking at her diagonally now, I glanced at the back of her head. What kind of expression could she be making? She was humming. She's humming a song from the Phantasm CD I'd lent her the day prior. Her footsteps were light and bouncy. We weren't even talking, so why was she so happy? Seeing her like that, it helped alleviate my anxiety, if only a little bit. But it was probably time to be honest with myself. Why was Rimi being so nice to me? Maybe the reason lay within the memories I had with her. Memories that were lost to me. When we arrived at school, I let Rimi go off on her own and made a break for the restroom. It was one of my secretly OP tactics. I felt bad since Rimi had gone out of her way to pick me up, but coming to school with a girl would make me stand out. Especially if the Dokuns in my class noticed. Who knew what terrible fate would be in store for me then? That was why I'd taken a short break in the restroom. It would buy me enough time to make them think I'd come alone. And yet my mission had ended in failure. Putting a nonchalant look on my face, I left the restroom and headed toward the classroom at the end of the hallway, keeping my head down all the way. As I made my way there, I spotted Ayase walking toward me. Oh, hey. The moment our eyes met, Ayase's lips twisted into a thin smile. Okay. Ayase was a celebrity. I knew I'd be better off not talking to her when we were at school, as it would only make me stand out. Unfortunately, Ayase was on the same page that I was. Sorry. Go stretch. Which she showed by choosing to stop directly in front of me. I had no choice but to follow suit.
How'd the matter with the police result, Takumi?
That's right. The police never at all bothered to try and take us in after that. You would think that they would have easily been able to catch Takumi if they just stayed at the storage container, but oh well. I nearly screamed, but I managed to cover my mouth with my hand. Why would you bring that up in public? Hang on. Let's try that. Sorry if the audio is really... Let me do a test. This is going to sound weird. Sorry about this. Okay. Let's test that. Might be a little on the lower end, but I'm... The situation was already really bad. Unsurprisingly, Ayase was the center of attention. It was rare for her to come to school at all, and she was Phantasm's vocalist, and she was a beautiful androgynous woman. The last thing was pretty much a universal opinion, meaning both guys and girls alike were immensely interested in an Ayase. And they all knew there was no way she'd be talking to an otaku freak like me under normal circumstances. Let me try... The audio knob for this new sound mixer I have is very sensitive. That's why I'm very... and I mean very sensitive. Like, I'll turn it, like, just a centimeter, and it'll be a complete different sound. The gazes surrounding me were painful. I wanted to run away. Seek your sword. That is what you must do. She always said the same thing every time we met. Ayase may have been on my side, but I was tired of her repeating the same bullshit over and over again like a broken record. I wanted to get it just as much as you want me to. I just don't know how. Give me a hint. How did you get your hands on yours? It was there before I knew it. And there it was. Was she ever going to stop dodging the goddamn question? At first, I did not perceive it. But when I ever so slightly altered my perspective, it all became clear. You altered your perspective? Perhaps it is already visible to you, Takumi. You just aren't seeing it. And she lost me. Conversing with Ayase always wore me out. Spare me the Zen cones, please. I'm really trying to find a sword. I definitely want to get my hands on it too. Unable to bear the piercing gazes for even a second longer, I gave Ayase a short sigh of exasperation, then slipped past her and into the classroom. After all that, I became even more depressed. Some of the guys, Misumi-kun included, were staring at me in astonishment. Shit, they'd see me talking to Ayase. I was in deep shit now. Who knew what they were gonna say to me? I could deal with it if they just made fun of me for a bit, but I was worried that they'd go one step further and pick an actual fight with me just because I dared to talk to Ayase. I really didn't need a demo of high school gang activity. I dropped my gaze and made my way to my seat, trying to bring the least possible amount of attention to me. I beg you, please, just leave me alone. Hey, man, what the hell? My prayers were left unanswered. Dagu, when the hell did you were talking to Kishimoto just now? I had to remain silent. I couldn't allow myself to look up. It's the first time I've ever seen Kishimoto actually talk to someone. What the hell did you do to her? I beg of you, don't yell so loud. It's echoing throughout the entire classroom. Please, just leave me alone. I have no intention of messing around with Ayase. Even if I wanted to, I'm not worthy of her anyway. So please, stop making such a big deal out of this. I know you can hear me, Dagu. Tell me yet.
Daichi,
Right then, Rimi interrupted him.
take it down a notch. Can't you see you're making a scene?
Huh? Oh, shit. I'm sorry. I got a bit carried away. Misumi-kun lowered his voice and clapped me lightly on the back. With my head still, I accidentally skipped the text. With my head still leaning low, I let out a small sigh. Rimi had come to save me yet again. Seriously though, how the hell did you actually do it? Shut up, Misumi. I didn't know what I'd expect. This was the dude that only thought with the wrong head after all.
Oh, give me a break. Do you know what self-control is, Daichi? You know, one of these days your girlfriend's gonna get over here and end up getting you. Don't worry your pretty little head about that. I didn't seem serious about her. I promise I'd give her all the TLC she deserves. What's that? So, Daku, let me in on it. How are things going with Kishimoto? Asking me once again, Misumi-kun started rubbing my shoulders. While I was reluctant about it, I timidly looked up. About half the guys in the classroom were taking quick glances at me and whispering to each other. Shit, they were still watching me. Don't look at me. Chills ran over the nape of my neck. If you were caught in the Dokyun's line of sight, you were finished. They never let you hear the end of it. All that awaited you was pure, unending hell. What should I do? Run away? Should I just skip classes and go home? I couldn't do that alone. The mere thought of running into either Shogun or Yua left my legs paralyzed. Should I ask Rimi to go back home with me? She said before that she kept her promises, which meant she'd stay by my side at all times. So she had really been telling the truth before, surely she'd skip class with me. Regardless, I need to get out of the classroom as soon as possible. Oh. What? Oh dear. Suddenly, a really loud sound came from the entrance. Everyone immediately turned their gaze toward it, trying to figure out what was going on. Hi. Hi. Small. It was the transfer student. Rubbing her forehead with tears in her eyes, she bowed silently to everyone around her again and again. Did she just ram herself into the door? Hilarious. The entire classroom had fallen silent. What the hell? Incredible. Did you see that? Yeah, she crashed right into the door.
God, Kazooie-chan's so cute. If the clumsy girl archetype actually existed IRL, she certainly fit the bill. Yep. Okay. Nice.
Oh no, she's crying. Is she okay? That was really, really loud.
With worry in her voice, Rimi ran up to the transfer student before anyone else could. But she couldn't help herself from getting involved. She just couldn't help herself from getting involved. What a meddler. But I guess she was just that kind. Shit, she beat me to it! Hey, wait, I'm supposed to take care of her! Making his intentions clear, aka telling Rimi to back off, Misumi-kun ran over to the transfer student, albeit a bit late. The transfer student running into the door ended up being a blessing in disguise. The guys that had been staring at me up until now had then shifted their attention towards her. Good job, transfer student.
I'd have to thank her later. But right then, I happened to overhear what a group of girls near my desk were saying.
うざ。
Loud ass.
何あれ。
What's wrong with her?
狙ってやってん
She's
じゃ
doing
ん。
that shit on purpose. Their whispers were faint, but I knew exactly what they said. Okay. Weird. Oh, here we are again. Gentlemen, I stand before you today to tell you of the boundless potential that exists within man's field of vision. The brain's visual centers house many nerve channels that ordinarily go unused. So I ask you all, are you familiar with dead spots?
Does this relate in any way to the second generation?
It very much does. Allow me to show you a simple experiment. Eh? Please take a look.
I haven't time for your child's play.
I assure you it is quite relevant. In this figure, the left side displays a dot, whereas the right side displays a ring. Okay. Now, please cover your left eye so that you cannot see through it. Okay. I'll do this experiment with them. Okay. Then, using only your right eye, please gaze at the dot on the left side. Okay. What do you see? Despite staring at the dot, are you still able to perceive the ring at the edge of your vision? Oh, what the? Oh, that's weird. Wait a minute, what? Hang on. I don't. I usually sometimes can have a decent chance at, like, a decent time at, like, seeing things in peripheral vision, but I flat out don't see it. But the second I oh, that's weird. The second I remove my hand from my left eye, I can see the ring on the left. Oh, that's weird. Oh, that's weird. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, you completely lose sight. Does it work with the same... It works the same way. If you look at the ring on the right and cover your right eye, you can't see the dot on the right. On the left, I'm sorry. Oh, that's weird. Huh.
No matter how much you stare at the dot, it's only natural you still be able to observe the ring adjacent to it.
In that case, I ask you to please continue staring at the dots, but now move your face closer to the monitor. What happens to said ring?
Oh, my. Interesting.
Incredibly interesting indeed. The ring on the right vanished, did it not? Despite what you may surmise, this is not because your field of vision is narrowing. Evidence against this is as follows. If you move even closer to the monitor, the ring will reappear in your field of vision. Wait, so if I... You're right, it does. Huh. That's weird. Huh. They're right. Huh. Yeah. If you do move closer, like, just... Huh. Strange.
What sort of trickery is this?
This is no trickery. It is one of the multitude of abilities the human eye has always possessed, yet normally goes unused. This is what we call a dead spot. It is a channel through which Noah shall produce something from nothing in the eyes of the population. So by focusing on one thing, something can be born from an emptiness? After class is finished, I found myself standing still at the school entrance. Don't leave trash in the shoe lockers. Twilight was beginning to encroach upon the sky, and a few crows were flying across it, flapping their wings without so much as a caw. I was waiting for Remy. It was her turn to clean the classroom, so she was taking longer than usual. We hadn't promised to go home together today. but I was sure we would. So waiting for that to happen, I'd been standing there for over 15 minutes. I had no idea how the day would go this morning, but I'd managed to make it through it with fairly little trouble. Misumi-kun was so desperate to talk with the transfer student that he dropped the subject about me and Ayase entirely. I owed it all to the transfer student, really. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Oh boy. There she is. Speak of the devil, there she was, passing right next to me. With a face that looked like she was about to cry, she bowed her head to me. Despite how uncomfortable I felt, I managed to nod back. I watched as she attempted to leave through the school gate, tripping over herself along the way. Once again, I thought about how small she was. She fit the lolly archetype to a T, and on top of that, she was a clumsy girl, too. Thank you, Takumi! I didn't know her very well, but her perfect blend of personalities made me want to shout from the rooftops. She was loaded with moe traits. And yet she didn't seem very popular with the other girls. What people valued in others really did differ between 2D and 3D, huh? No delusion. Haku! Rumi hurried over to me in a half sprint.
You really did wait for me. Thank you so much. Did you really want to go home with me that badly?
She peered into my face with a broad grin. I quickly turned away. Thanks to the setting sun, she wouldn't have noticed my face turning red. Rather than wanting to head home together, it was more like I was too scared to do it alone. I even felt paranoid just waiting alone at the gate. What if Yua was hiding in the shadows? Rumi should have known that, and yet she was deliberately probing me in a teasing manner.
Aw, man, even if you didn't really mean it, I still want you to agree with me.
I'm gonna turn this up just to... Again, I might have just made that way too loud, and I'm sorry if I did. I barely even touched the knob, but it says it increased.
In all honesty, I'm...
Rumi had an unexpectedly distant look in her eye. They shone faintly with the afterglow of the sunset.
I'm really happy I can support you, Taku. Really.
Thanks. I thanked her out of reflex. I truly was thankful, though. Rumi had become completely irreplaceable to me. Until I found a D-sword, she was all I had to rely on.
You're welcome.
With a joyous smile, Rumi guided me away.
Anyway, let's head home.
Alright. Suime Academy was in the high-end and residential area of Shoto. Every house was huge, and the whole area just oozed with an air of success and affluency. Despite this being Shibuya, and still daytime at that, there were hardly any people around. It gave the area this forlorn, lonesome air.
Hey, Taku? You're surprisingly popular, huh?
What? I nearly died just then. What the hell was she talking about?
Did you not realize that?
With a chuckle, Remy shot her index finger toward the tip of my nose. Don't point at people, it's rude, goddammit.
I mean, you were that pretty 3-year girl just the other day, the one with the glasses.
Well,
I know, you already told me yesterday. It's not it's not anything nice, she's just been picking on you.
if you knew that, then why are you...
It's not just her, today you were talking with the Fess herself. Next up was Orihara-san. On the very morning she transferred, the first thing she did was talk to you. And after all that, you now find yourself heading home with me. See, you really are a popular guy.
Actually, I had been thinking about that recently. Has my life been as a normie begun? Are my popular times finally here? Stuff like that. Something that would have been absolutely unthinkable for me a month ago. Back then, I never had a chance to even talk to 3D girls, excluding Nanami, of course. I always boasted about not being into 3D girls, but that was just to make myself look cool and indifferent. So Ringy was definitely onto something. Why had my encounters with girls increased with such frequency lately? It all kicked off after that chat with Shogun. Scary thoughts suddenly crossed my mind. What if every single event in the past month had all been a delusion? What if I'd just been having a really, really long dream? Considering how insane everything was, I didn't think I'd be all that surprised if everything went right back to normal tomorrow. Or maybe the person controlling me had swapped out with someone else. Maybe the previous one was happy just watching me go through the motions, but the new one preferred to interact with other characters, or something like that. Well, I'm just here. Either way, the past month didn't feel entirely real to me. Way too many things had been happening.
Oh, right. I just found out about it today. I can't believe Tess is in the same school as us. And she's in the same year as us, too. A classic story, then.
Rimi's voice was overflowing with excitement. I guess Rimi was quite the trend chaser.
I only just borrowed that CD from you yesterday, so it's even crazier. Not to mention he's really cute, too.
Rimi circled around in front of me. While still facing me, she began to walk backward. Her voice got all quiet, and then she asked me a question timidly.
So, what were you two talking about? I mean, this morning, you and Fess or Kishimoto-san. I really, really want to know. I know it's not really my place to ask, but when you were talking with Kishimoto-san, you seemed really troubled about something. Ever since then, I've been kind of worried about you.
She'd seen completely through me. I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea to tell her everything. It wasn't like I had other people to talk to about it. Plus, agonizing over it on my own had gotten pretty exhausting. I'd appreciate another perspective. Not from someone who's spoken nothing but vague, ambiguous bullshit like Ayase or Insana, but from someone who would actually give advice, concrete answers to my concerns. But when we talked yesterday, she hadn't believed me at all. We were talking about the sword thing.
The sword thing? You mean what we talked about yesterday?
I nodded. Ayase has one.
Has one what?
A real one. I wasn't completely sure, but I thought I heard Rimi taking in a large breath. She staggered with her eyes open wide, and then, after taking a few steps back...
There's no way.
She shouted with a clearly skeptical voice.
I mean, that was a toy, right?
Yeah, mine was a toy, but hers is the real deal. If you go to her concerts, you'll see... I quickly realized what I was saying and cut myself off. Would she even be able to see it? I mean, Ayase had mentioned that only people with the powers could see D-swords.
Okay, so you're telling me I'll be able to see a real one if I go to a concert? Well, I would like to check out Phantasm's concert sometimes, so I could just look for it then. Oh hey, we could go together to one if you want.
You might not be able to see it. Only a certain subset of people can.
Oh, really? Like the Emperor's new clothes? Well, considering I'm kind of dumb, I probably won't be able to see it. How's that?
Actually, that was a good point. Come to think of it, I didn't know anything about what exactly a real D-sword was, nor how it worked. I'd just been accepting everything Ayase said without question.
Does a sword like that really exist? I find it hard to believe. Are you sure the sword Kishimoto-san isn't just some super realistic toy?
But it was glowing.
There are all kinds of toys that glow, though.
Well, she wasn't wrong. If you want something to glow, you could easily slap some lights onto it. But when I thought of the overwhelming sense of presence Seina and Ayase's swords had, their existence became harder to deny. They had an aura about them that no mere toy could have been capable of. And most of all, Ayase had taken that sword out of thin air. I'd seen it with my own eyes. It wasn't anything simple like hypnosis or super speed. On top of that, I felt as if I'd only gotten to experience the tip of the iceberg. I might have the power to project delusions into reality. I had no definitive proof, but I tried throwing my thoughts at Rimi regardless. So that could be why Shogun is targeting me. That was the only possible reason he'd be targeting me. There was nobody more harmless than I was. Otakus were fundamentally harmless beings. We did shut ourselves away in our own little worlds, after all. If we had time to bother denizens of the third dimension, we'd rather spend that in our heads flirting with adorable moe characters.
Is this about that patent you were looking into yesterday? Do you have any equipment like that, Taku?
I shook my head. Nothing like that. I don't have equipment, but I have the power to do it. Maybe.
Taku, you're just messing with me, right? Oh, I get it now. Is this all for some manga or anime or something?
Just I feared she didn't believe me. But I knew I'd experienced what I was talking about before, with that accident back in elementary school. I tried desperately to explain that to Rimi. That I might have been a murderer. I knew Rimi might ban me if I confessed that to her, but I couldn't hide anymore. I wanted to tell someone. If I did, I can clear the uncertainty in my mind, even if just a little bit. Rimi listened to my shaky explanation with a troubled look on her face, remaining silent the entire time. And after I finished talking...
Oh, come on. You're overthinking it.
She nonchalantly laughed the whole thing off.
I'm gonna be honest, Taku. This whole thing sounds pretty delusional. You know that, right?
Was I really overthinking it? That was a nice thought. But even with that theory, the uncertainty in the depths of my mind hadn't cleared at all. Are we switching perspectives? We are. The smell of dust wafted through an office. An office situated on the second floor of a somewhat old building. Is this Ban's office? The sunlight streamed in through the window covering the back wall, turning the fluttering dust into that of a thin, powdery snow. The words plastered onto the window, Frisia Credit Bureau, cast a shadow onto a nearby desk. 20 desks were lined up across the floor, with not even a hint of a gap between them. Each one was drowning in an endless sea of documents and papers and files, piles stacked so high they looked like they were on the verge of collapsing. From an outsider's perspective, it looked far more like a publishing company than a credit bureau. Most of the desks lacked denizens. There were only around 5 to 6 people at best. As for why that was, the obvious conclusion would be that it was Saturday, but this was by no means the answer. This was made evident by the whiteboard stuck to the wall near the entrance, its schedule densely packed with tasks and projects. Nearing the end of his lunch break, Ban Yasuji opened the door to the private investigation company. He entered without so much as a knock, yet none of the workers seemed to bat an eye. Continuing to act as if he belonged here, Ban gave a quick "how's it going" and headed toward the desk at the back of the room. In it sat a robust-looking woman hunched over her laptop.
Hey there, Mon-chan. Working hard or hardly working?
In response, the woman continued staring at her monitor with a weary expression. Her name was Momose Katsuko, and she was the president of Frisia. I feel like this is the first time in a while we've actually seen a new character sprite.
Look who's back.
Yep, I'm still kicking. Any new tidbits on New Gen?
My word, I'm a busy woman here, Ban-chan. To say I have a lot on my plate would be an understatement. Small businesses like mine have to make sacrifices, and that includes our Saturdays. Don't make me crabbier than I already am.
Momose had finally raised her head. She placed a hand on her forehead, and upon seeing Ban's grinning face, lightly shook her head.
How many times have I told you that this isn't some secret police organization or subsidiary thereof? I'm sure you think you can just storm in here and mine us for all the information we've got, but I'm not running a charity here. If you have the free time to spend coming here, spend it on your own investigations, Mr. Civil Servant. Alternatively, you could actually pay the retaining fee. If you'd rather do that, please take an appointment sheet from Miho-chan at your earliest convenience.
Ouch, the big cheese has got by. Come on, we're friends here.
In spite of Momose's sharp remarks, Ban didn't show a hint of concern. He simply fanned himself with his distinctive handheld fan, remaining aloof as could be.
I think I'd be treated like this, even after I helped get this place off the ground when it opened up. You're breaking my heart.
Oh, for goodness sakes, Banchan. How many more years are you going to keep holding that over my head? I swear, someone gives you an inch and you take a mile.
You got me there. Fine, I yield. How's this for a retaining fee?
Ban slowly pulled out a plastic bag with the name of a nearby Japanese-style confectionery store on it.
Oh, you. Why didn't you just open up with that, you silly goose? Appreciate it as always.
You know the way to her heart, and you know the way to my heart. With sweets.
Mio-chan, would you be a dear and make us some tea?
Her attitude having undergone a swift, stark change, Momose closely examined the contents of the bag Ban had handed her.
Oh my, chestnut yokon. I suppose they are in season now, aren't they? And I didn't even have to ask. Banchan, what are you still standing around for? Come, sit down already.
Why, thank you.
I'm getting a very strange deja vu sense. I just finished playing through Trails Through Daybreak 2 not too long ago, and this is suddenly reminding me way too much about Van. And it's just a bit odd to me how I've managed to go from one game where a character is in love with sweets to the point where he'll do anything, to another game where there is also a character who loves sweets so much that they will do anything. It's just funny to me. Ban gave a wry smile, took a chair from the closest desk, and seated himself beside Momose. The clerical lady Momose had called for before brought over 2 steaming cups of tea.
So, got any new tidbits on New Gen?
Hold your horses now.
Momose carefully unwrapped the chestnut yokon, folded up the wrapper, and set it beside her PC. She hurriedly devoured the first of the sweet treats. Japanese-style treats were her greatest weakness. They were a necessary offering for Ban to bring every time he came in for information.
We're so scrumptious.
I might not be one to talk here, but have you thought about slimming down recently? There's a whole bunch of diets out there.
You're about to get blasted through that wall, I feel.
Otherwise, you might never find yourself a husband before you shrivel up otherwise.
You're right. You're not one to talk. Besides, I'm long past the age where I'd still be on the market.
With a shrug on her shoulders, Momose took a sip from her tea, then turned to face Ban.
You realize another new gen case happened, right? Should you really be skipping out on work right now?
All the others are already breaking their backs investigating now. Though I might try to get at the truth from a different angle.
Oh, please. I suggest you stop trying to act so suave. It really doesn't suit you.
Knowing himself to be quite sensitive to hot drinks, Ban showed no hint of reaching for his cup. He simply continued to fan his face, in spite of the already chilly air. It was something of a habit of his. Then...
Are you police looking into the GE rate? Are the police looking?
Oh right, the GE rates. Now that one really threw me for a loop. Was exactly like you said, Momo-chan.
Of course it was. I never dream of handing over false info. Information is how I keep food on my table, after all. So, are they looking into it?
Well, I certainly am. I'm taking the initiative to do it myself.
Banchan, you won't dare!
Momose's voice carried well. Her personality was intrinsically energetic, lending her voice quite a bit of volume. Workers of Frisia were used to this, not even batting an eye as her angry voice reverberated throughout the office. The boss's yelling were an everyday occurrence, after all. Ban and Momose were old friends, so he was all too familiar with being on the receiving end of it. Thus, much to her chagrin, Momose's wrath was met only with him lazily picking at his ear. Before she said anything else, Momose quickly lowered her voice, for this was a topic she did not want met with prying ears. But her face was red with anger, as if she had not been cheerfully stuffing herself with sweets just a moment before. She pointed her finger at Ban with tremendous intensity.
Didn't I make it absolutely clear that following that lead on your own would be dangerous? Politics, religion, and business. Do you have any idea how deeply rooted it is in all three?
Politics, religion, and business. I assume this is in reference to Nozomi, right? The company?
rooted in politics, religion, and business.
You should know all too well what happened to Professor Otto after he gave that GE rate lecture on TV.
Yeah, he was killed in the crucifixion. This is the first time you've told me.
Oh! Really now? Interesting. The victim of the crucifixion was a person who was explaining the GE rate on TV. They're making it sound as if the reason he was killed is because of that. Interesting. So, what is Nozomi's goal, again? Interesting, though. We know a bit more info about the third victim now, or the third case. The victim was a professor who talked about GE rates, and it was after that explanation that he was soon killed, likely leading to that being the cause for why he was killed. Is the reason he was killed then because Nozomi was worried that if word got out about GE rates and all that, then it could be traced back to them? So basically they're just trying to cover their tracks by getting rid of him before he could say anything more that might lead back to them? Very interesting, very.
And it won't be the last either. I'll keep on saying it until you get through that thick skull of yours.
Hang on, you know something else I just realized? That might have been something, that could be part of the reason why Takashina was targeted too. Because remember what he gave us to write on before? He gave us that questionnaire. We were given that questionnaire regarding, that was from Nozomi. It had that company's name on it. So, could he be killed? Could Dr. Takashina have been killed for a similar reason?
You always ignore my warnings. And I'm always the one to clean up your mess. I'm fed up with it.
Simmer down now. The tea's getting cold. When I have a sip and cool off along with it.
Ignoring both Ban and her tea, Momose tossed a second chestnut yokon into her mouth in a huff.
This really isn't something to get all worked up about. Besides, Sue was helping me out, to an extent. As things are, convincing the head honchos up top about something as outlandish as GE rates ain't easy.
I acknowledge that Suwa-chan is both capable and reliable, but so help me, if you overwork the poor boy...
Because when were you looking out for him? Doesn't that what it's like to be a mother hen?
No, I just can't have you getting him all wrapped up in your mad schemes, Ban-chan. He's got a bright future ahead of him, and I won't let you squander it.
Alright, fair enough.
With a shrug of resignation, Ban took a testing sip of his tea, only to immediately grimace. It was still too hot.
Be honest with me, though. Is it really possible for biorhythms to make people go insane? To drive them to murder?
I've already explained this all to you.
Actually, I can't even fully understand myself. Does that have something to do with your specialty, EM waves?
Electromagnetic waves, you mean? Momose let out a sigh, then, in contrast to Ban, composedly sipped at her tea.
You're familiar with how nights with a full moon often have more cases occur on them, yes?
Yeah, somewhat.
A vast influx of incidents and accidents would occur on the night of a full moon. This was no urban legend either. One only need glance at the Tokyo Metropolitan Police statistical records. And what do you think would happen if the biorhythm curve increased by a power greater than a full moon? Well, if it somehow managed to go even if it's true that more people seem to act weirdly when a full moon happens, then if a biorhythm curve increased by a power greater than a full moon, then it would make people go full on insane, wouldn't it? It would completely change who they are.
More stimulation. Yeah?
That's all. Shibuya is a special city. I mentioned that, yes?
Yeah, because of its special gravity or whatever.
When the GE rate gets high, the biorhythm curve increases. What's more, the increase far exceeds the effects of a full moon night. To be precise, it's approximately 6,800 times more intense. Wow. If it's already a decent increase on a full moon night, and these increases are supposedly that much more, intense, then yeah, it would completely, at that point, it would basically be a different person. It would completely change who they are.
That number ain't all that easy to visualize.
It's in a completely different ballpark. Think of it like that.
So why is it happening now?
I imagine it's because of what Professor Oda had said before he was killed, how the GE rate had been rapidly increasing over the past half year.
Oh, the GE rate has been increasing over the past half year. If that's the case, then yeah. If the GE rate is what's making people go insane, and if it starts increasing over time, then yeah, it would make incidents like the ones that have been occurring, the new gen ones, occur more and more often. But then the question becomes, why is the GE rate rapidly increasing? What exactly would have happened that would cause the GE rate to suddenly start increasing?
Now, that should be impossible, as long as there aren't any massive changes to Earth's strata, that is.
Well, there is one thing that comes to mind that might have caused this change, why it might be increasing, and it's that earthquake that was mentioned. They mentioned before that an earthquake happened a little while ago, and that it was after that earthquake that the new gen incidents started occurring. It's possible that that earthquake could have caused the GE rate to start increasing in a strange way that makes that allowed these incidents to occur. There's a problem with that, my assumption on that though, which is what was just said about the times. If memory serves, I think they mentioned that the earthquake was about 2 months ago, or maybe at this point in the game it would be 3 months ago. The thing is, they're saying here that the GE rate was starting to increase over the past half year, which would be at least 6 months ago. So while it's true that the earthquake could have been increasing it, that wouldn't explain the 3 months prior. So why was that the case then?
Changes, huh? Like?
You need enough energy for a volcano to erupt and scramble crossing.
Volcano? That's strong.
At least, that's the only way to explain how the GE rate got like it is now.
The professor that tried to bring this to the world's attention was killed as a part of New Gen.
Did you hear about how on the day prior to the incident, the TV show that the professor was supposed to appear on was suddenly cancelled?
That's so.
Really? An acquaintance of mine overheard a conversation between a few workers at MHK.
There ain't many folks out there that can twist the arm of a show broadcasted by the state. Surely that narrows it down.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the details. If I was, I would have gone after whoever was behind it a long time ago.
Ben leaped forward, intrigued.
I've got a pretty good idea where this is going. Given the circumstances, I ought to hear it.
Are you sure about that? You'll be stepping into the dark side of society, Banchan. Are you absolutely sure you want to know? You might even get fired.
As long as I catch the culprit behind these new gem cases, I don't really care where I end up. Well, I'll think about what to do after I hear you out.
Sipping her tea, Momose tapped away at her laptop keyboard with her free hand. Displayed on the screen was a single document. It contained a list of information Momose had personally looked into.
The Meiwa Party.
Meiwa Party? What? Fictional. One of two major political parties in Japan. 4 years ago, the Meiwa Party was an opposition party, but that changed following a major breakthrough in the general election that year. Its catchphrase is a brighter peace for the people, as the two kanji used in its name, Mei and Wa, mean bright and peace respectively. Interesting.
Momo-chan, you gotta be kidding me here. I was sure the opposition party's name would come up at some point, but here?
Van got grown in utter exasperation. Yet, I keep reading it out here. Yet despite a smile, his eyes showed not even a hint of one. All they housed now was the cold, discerning gaze of a detective.
We mess this up, the whole country's gonna be shaken to its core.
You're basically accusing an entire political party of something terrible, or rather, like, catastrophic. If you suddenly broadcast that to the world, and it turned out to be true, well, I don't know if I'd even be able to begin to explain how bad that would be. But it would change basically everything. Since it was the weekend, I'd been unable to get Remy to come over, so I was forced to spend 2 very anxious days all by myself. I had Remy pick up some groceries on Friday so I could survive the weekend without leaving my base. But I'd been very close to sending her a text asking her to come over, multiple times. But in the end, I hadn't sent anything. The only thing that gave me a break from my anxiety was the half hour I'd spent watching the latest episode of Bloodtoon. Even in extreme circumstances such as this one, I still had to make sure to stay up to date on Bloodtoon. Remy was my sole source of comfort in the 3rd dimension, but when it came to the second one, Bloodtoon was the one that fulfilled that role. Well, to be more specific, Seraton was. Thank you, Takumi. After I'd finally overcome that weekend, Monday came. I took a peek at Fray Parra's Phantasm section, only to find it in a state of complete disarray. Wasting no time, I immediately followed a link taking me to @channel. It was a total shit show. What happened? Fessa Phantasm's real name is Kishimoto. When she was younger, she was hospitalized for mental illness reasons. The name of the hospital was AHM. Fess from Phantasm was hospitalized in the past. Phantasm is over. Cool story, bro. Too bad it's total BS. Deets, please. Whose eyes are those eyes, lol? Who the fuck is Fez? You serious? Little AHM is only meant for patients with severe mental disorders, FYI. Okay. For fuck's sake, more haters. What a poor attempt at bait. If you're gonna bother making a threat like this, at least include a source. Fail. This is such bullshit. Fez has never been in that dumbass hospital. How do you even sleep at night spraying such obvious slander? I've never even heard of AHM before. Stop making shit up. The one watching you was I, Fez. Strike the stake, strike the stake, strike the stake right into these dumbass spouting BS. The next new gym victim's gonna be one of you bastards. One's claim is legit. Fez was hospitalized for a very long period of time for mental health reasons. The hospital publishes a free newspaper in which a selection of drawings, essays, poems, and other works done by patients are shown. Her song lyrics can be found there. You can find all this on the hospital's website, dipshits. Her full name is Kishimoto blank. AHM is Arkhart Medical. Finally. So Ayase's been figured out. And she was in a mental hospital? Is that seriously all it takes for you guys to abandon her? Well, that's just fine by me. It just means I've got fewer rivals now. Feston will be mine, see y'all at the wedding. Finally. Wait, Lamau, it was actually true with the food. Yes! Hell yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare flame war. There's even pictures, I'm gonna piss myself laughing. Notice of Phantasm's termination. Is Phantasm gonna disband because of this? I used to like Fez quite a bit. This must be someone's guidance too, Lamau. The verses there aren't used in Phantasm's songs, aren't they? The one watching you was I, Kishimoto Ayase. Don't quit, Fez. Seriously gonna cry. I think I sort of understand it. They say there's a fine line between genius and insanity, after all. Band breakup flag for the win. Tonight the black mass cometh. Lolly. Well, I guess that sets Phantasm's fate in stone. I guess this was more fitting end for them than going mainstream. Any comment from Fest yet on their official website? Doesn't matter how much noisy versions make on your Fest doesn't look at the past, only the future. Can't wait for her next prosty predicting all of your deaths. BRB putting on my roller skates. Okay, what's the problem though? This reeks of some weird advertising scheme by Phantasm. Desperate to keep your dead band alive much? It was always obvious that Fez is a total schizo. Why is everyone acting like this is a surprise at all? So Fez was mentally ill, but that's what's good about her. Everyone calm down. This is all just a magnificent bait from Feston. Fez's spirit collapsed because the world is full of ill will. Its power awoke the punk part of her soul. Those keen, aggressive lyrics are the cry of her sublimated soul. We, on the contrary, should celebrate the facts bared by 12 as holy grace. The website's down. Are they trying to bail? I followed the URL 12 had sent. Arkhart. Yeah.
Overview, about us, annual events, dormitory, our facilities, childcare, transportation, young patients, art gallery, contact us. Art Hark Medical is an organization that seeks to guide children to the right way of life by providing them with good role models and a wonderful natural environment to learn and grow. Okay. Apparently, Art Hark Medical was an old-school psychiatric facility that only treated severe cases of mental illness. Or at least that was what the website said. The website had pictures of the place, and frankly, it looked like a straight-up penitentiary. There were iron bars on every single window. That's terrifying. I wasn't even sure if it was still open or not. The homepage hadn't been updated for 4 years or so. But just as the poster on that channel had said, beneath a certain poem was the name and photo of a young Ayase. Ayase was mentally ill. Kishimoto Ayase. The shadow of the wicked heart lurks within that body, a presence which the eye cannot perceive. Even if I try to split asunder, perpetual nightmares alas take shape, and eventually become a sword, one that will tear this body apart. Should they bear the shield of apathy, ye souls shall escape the flames of war. On a battlefield reborn, come foes with malice in their hearts, ill will without compare. When that time comes, malice shall possess its own will, and thus reveal its true form. Perpetual nightmares alas take shape and eventually become a sword, one that will tear this body apart. That's gotta be talking about D-swords, isn't it? It wasn't that it was shocking to me or anything like that. After all, I'd regularly gone to a mental hospital too, back when I was in elementary school, so really I felt sympathy for her. Ayase and I were the same. She had that bewitching aura to her, and every person my age in Shibuya thought she was so charismatic. But despite how different that made us, in this one way we were the same. The fact that we had that in common reinforced my hypothesis that I had the same power she did. The power to project delusions into reality. It won't be wrong to say that it gave me some courage, maybe even strength. Though, there was one problem. Up until now, I'd taken everything Ayase had said at face value. But that might have been a mistake. Things about how to acquire a D-sword. Things about how getting my hands on one could save me. It wasn't the phenomenon she showed me that was making me doubt her, but the words she'd said. I wasn't sure whether to or not to believe her. Maybe... Oh? The sound ringing of my phone startled me. You'd always count on them to take you by surprise. I nearly pissed myself. That is why I hated these things. The loud ring refused to stop, so I clicked my tongue and grabbed it. It was probably Nanami calling me. She was probably just calling me to bitch about whatever random bullshit was bothering her. Kill me now. Annoying as could be, I pressed the accept call button and held the phone to my ear without checking who the call was even calling. I had no idea why I did that. After everything that I'd been through, why the hell had I not checked the caller's number? Oh, God. What came from the other side of the line? There was a certain melody playing loudly. It's gonna happen again! Throw the phone! You may pass. I frantically checked the number on the display. Yep, it's you again. Shit, I knew I should have checked. It was them. But how? It said it wasn't in use anymore. When I heard Nanami call the number to check, that one notice played. Maybe the prankster had reactivated it? What do I do? Panicking, I turned toward the center of my room. Surely Rumi would be there, ready to give me some advice. But she obviously wasn't. Of course she wasn't. Rumi was at school right now, in the middle of class. I told her in advance that I wouldn't go to school today, so she hadn't come to pick me up. As I freaked out trying to figure out what the hell to do, You May Pass kept playing from my phone. A whole minute had already passed. From the small amount I'd listened to earlier, I could tell there were other sounds mixed in with the song. The few things I could make out were the sounds of car engines and people walking. Whoever was calling me, they had to be outdoors. But who the hell's calling me? I could only think of one person that would pull a prank like that. Shogun. Now really freaking out, I looked at Seraton, who was standing next to my PC screen. What should I do, Sarah? Seraton smiled at me, just as she always did.
Why don't you turn it off? Just ignore it, you silly Billy.
Oh, you're right. I could do that. Should have done that from the beginning. I put my thumb on the button to end the call. But for some reason, before hanging up, I felt the undeniable urge to listen to You May Pass. Just one more time. Just for a little bit longer. It felt strange, even to me. Here it comes! It creeped me out. There's no reason I should have hesitated even remotely, and yet I almost subconsciously gripped my phone and brought it to my ear. Here it comes! Here comes the buzzer. Brace your ears, friends. Brace your ears. I thought it was a lot louder. Oh, there it is. It came surging out of the phone. A fierce pain. A violent, piercing, nearly ultrasonic noise. That sound shot throughout my entire body. It was as if lightning had struck my head. My entire body was paralyzed. I screamed as loud as I could, yet I couldn't even hear my own voice. Boiling. My brain. My heart. They boiled. They bubbled. They melted into mush. Pain crawled from deep within my body, tearing me apart. My consciousness liquefied and coursed in my veins. When it finally arrived at my heart, it erupted in a resounding explosion, then vanished. Overwhelmed by these horrific sensations, I was unable to figure out what was going on. I could no longer even think. What happened? What happened? What? When Kusunoki slowly opened her eyes, she saw her class, Class 3B, enveloped in pure chaos. Several students had collapsed. Their eyes had rolled back into their heads. Foam bubbled from their mouths as their entire bodies convulsed. Oh god, what? What happened? Another group of students were crouched low to the floor, cowering, pressing down on their heads in pain. Oh! Other people got the same message, or the same call. What was it doing to people? Students that remained shot up from their seats and made straight for the hallway, even though classes were still technically in session. The teacher was too focused on taking care of the students that had collapsed to pay those who left any attention. All the students that had run away were screaming in terror, but none of that seemed to register within Yua's mind. Her phone had been vibrating in her skirt pocket for a while now. Once she realized that, Yua slowly reached for it. She attempted to stand up, but she was unable to keep steady and fell from her chair. Staying low to the ground, she leaned against the wall. After she put her glasses back in place, Yua pressed the accept call button and held her phone to her ear. Don't do that.
Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes. Oh.
はい。
Yes?
あ、
Oh, me?
一応大丈夫です。
Fine. As she answered the question, Yua grimaced and pressed on her forehead. She could hear the clamor of her classmates in the hallway, as well as the voice of her teacher trying to help the unconscious students. But it all sounded so terribly distant. Yes. Yes.
あの、
And you
あなたは、
are...
はい。
Yes.
はい。
Yes, I see.
そうですか。
Then that means...
それで、
Huh? Suddenly, Yua went pale. With a gulp, she covered her phone with her hand and brought her voice low. Her voice had very clearly been shaking. That can't be
そんな
true.
わけないんです。だって、
Because
本当は、
in actuality... Upon saying that much, Yua's voice began to falter. She hung her head low.
本当は、
In actuality, it was... me.
たのに。
It was me. The commotion in the hallway intensified. It was you. Wait. Did she commit one of the... Hang on. I'm starting to wonder. Are each of the main characters we're seeing... Are some of them being forced to commit these murders? Now that I think about it, think about certain things. Think about the crucifixion. Rimi was there, right? So, Rimi would obviously be a likely culprit there. Then, think about the vampire case, the one with the bathroom. You remember who we ended up seeing close to that bathroom before the incident occurred? It was Sena. Sena had been there. Is it possible that some of these main characters are being controlled and forced to do these killings? Did Yua do one of the killings? In that case, did Takumi actually cause one of the killings as well? But they're not doing it consciously. They're doing it because they don't realize it. Everyone was looking and pointing in the same direction, anxious expressions on their faces. The windows in the hallway rattled as if they were being hit by a fierce glare. Gale.
はい、
Yes,
そうです。
that's right. My
私の妹です。
sister.
はい、
Yes, I
わかりまし
understand.
た。
At last, Yua bowed her head as if the person she was speaking to was in front of her, then hung up on the phone. Then she looked up and directed her gaze toward where everyone was pointing, beyond the window.
空が
The sky. What's happening? As if a seal of white paint had coated the surface of a grand lake. What is happening? The sky, which had previously been filled with only by its own light blue color, was turning white. The white was spreading at an impossible speed. It bled rapidly across the sky, eroding each and every speck of blue it could find. What is going on?
白く染まって
It's turning white. What is happening? Chapter 5 complete. Delusions. Chapter 6. Noah. I am scared. If it were a day like any other, getting released from a lengthy meeting should have put Ban Yasuji in a good mood. However, today was not a normal day. The detective removed himself from his peers, moved to the nearest window, and attempted irritably to call his junior. Sua, his partner, had not shown up to today's meeting. Something is causing people to... What is going on? This is terrifying. I get wanting to play hooky on this, but did you really have to leave me eat a goat alone? Darn kid, Ban thought to himself. At first glance, Sua may have appeared lighthearted, but in actuality, he was quite a diligent man and took his job very seriously. With this being Ban's opinion of him, what had happened today was quite the shock. He attempted to call him several times, but it always went to voicemail. Ever since he had heard a fairly unsettling story from Amose 2 days prior, Ban had been faced with a constant feeling of uneasiness. And today, only more troubles had been added to the pile. There was the incident with Sua, but that was not all. When Ban was reporting about the G rate earlier this morning, he was immediately shot down by Matsunaga. We don't have time for crackpot theories, his superior said. Could you not add to the pile, kid? I've had enough for 1 week. Ban waved his fan at his face repeatedly and let out a small sigh. And right when he did, the call connected, and he heard the voice of his junior on the other end. Sir, Sue!
There you are, you schmuck. Where the hell have you been?
The reception was extremely poor. What part of the countryside did Sua lose himself in, Ben thought, scratching his head. So, I mean, wait, no?
Huh? What are you saying? Where are you?
As Ben shouted into the receiver, Sua's voice disappeared on the other end, replaced by a continuous rustling sound. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. So where the hell did you...
Well, I thought I'd do things my way for a bit, so I went and asked around.
Uppity little...
The way Sua acted on his own without getting permission was not something that was worthy of praise. However, Ban could not help but smile wryly to himself. As he too was taking unauthorized actions even now, he considered that perhaps he was a bad influence on his junior. Might be close to getting my hands on a clue. There'll be more conclusive evidence as to who's the real new gen culprit.
What?
The color in Ban's eyes shifted. Keep that top secret though, I might be mistaken.
Doesn't matter. Just get your rear back here right now, you hear me?
No, I gotta dig some more.
What? You talking back?
Ease up, I've got...
Sua! Sua!
Oh no. Right at that moment, the area below Ban's feet began to shake.
Quick!
The shaking gradually increased in intensity. It's hard to even stand up straight. Unable to maintain his balance for any longer, Ban got down low to the floor.
It's a big one.
The art detectives, who at first seemed to be underestimating the seriousness of the situation, all quickly moved under their tables.
clock fixed to the wall, the paper cups and pens atop the tables, the projection equipment. They all crashed to the floor, one by one. The 2 whiteboards standing side by side near the podium fell to the ground as well. It's like being stuck in some insane turbulence. I just realized something. I should probably save here. Lock that. That was how it felt to Ban. It felt like the ground was disappearing beneath him. His entire body was being swung left and right by the shaking. It seemed to have a seismic intensity of around 5 or 6. Has the Great Kanto earthquake finally happened? Of all times for it to hit, it hits now. Immediately after thinking that, a fierce pain shot through Ban, causing him to groan out in pain. It felt as if he had taken a violent blow to the head. But he had not been physically struck by anyone. It was simply a severe headache. Ugh. Suddenly a scream echoed throughout the conference room. Gritting his teeth, Ban looked up to see one of the detectives gripping his head as he writhed in agony. And then, like a lifeless doll, he fell to the ground with a thump. Most of the other detectives were gripping their heads as well, their faces contorted in pain. It was this headache that bore no resemblance to any he had experienced before. Whether it was connected to the earthquake, there was no way for Ban to know. Eventually, the shaking gradually subsided. With his vision blurred, Ban looked out the window. Everything was covered in a milky white light. What is going on? A light so dazzling, Ban could no longer keep his eyes open. Oh. Okay. Oh no! As I opened my eyes, I felt a sharp pain, a pain sharp enough to crack my skull open. I found myself slumped over in the middle of my room. I tried to get up, but the pain in my head suddenly shot to the rest of my body, and I nearly fainted from the agony. I let out a pained groan. After 5 full minutes of pure, writhing torture, the pain receded slightly, and I managed to stand up by using the leg of my bed to support myself. I wiped off the cold sweat on my forehead with my hand. My room was completely devastated. It was as if the tornado had ripped through it. All my wife, who was lined up on the shelf, had toppled over, and some had even fallen off the shelf entirely. The bread was now sitting at an angle, and the piles of eroge and packages had crumbled to the floor and scattered everywhere. The hell had happened? If I remember correctly, there had been a phone call that played the melody of You May Pass, before then transferring into something like an ambulance siren. It was exactly the same as last time. That's right. Right when the buzzard sounded, I heard the ground roar, and immediately after that, my whole body felt like it was boiling and melting. And then I couldn't remember a damn thing. It was all completely blank. Oh god. Was it an EM wave attack from Shogun? What if Shogun was capable of something similar to what was in the patent I'd found? Just the thought alone sent a chill down my spine. I think there are much more serious problems occurring right now. While trying my best to endure my headache, I looked up at the ceiling. Of course, there wasn't anything to see up there. But if he was reading my mind, he'd have to have been using a satellite that'd be in orbit way up there. There's no way. That isn't possible. But considering what Stan had already had told me before, that patented system could already be in use. Maybe it was in use, and a few people were already abusing it. And maybe Shogun was among them. No, there was no way. It was way too far-fetched. There was no way an old fart like him would, with one foot in the grave, could have private access to a satellite, unless he was one of the key persons behind a top-secret black government project sanctioned. Scarring myself with my own delusions wasn't helping anything. Since something had actually happened, I decided to look up what the hell it was online. Still fighting my headache, I crawled to my computer. Huh? The computer should have still been on. The monitor should have been displaying a wallpaper with serotonin on it, but it was pitch black. I hadn't set up to automatically go into sleep mode, so it wouldn't make any sense for it to do that. I was feeling dizzy. It was as if I had no strength left in my body. Even standing up took out almost everything I had.
Gritting my teeth, I attempted to move the mouse around. No response. Next, I tried to press the power button. Oh, I was not expecting it to work. After a second, the hard disk started, emitting its typical scratching noise. I sat down in my chair. As I was waiting for my PC to boot, I frantically grabbed my phone, which was still on my desk. I checked the time. Huh?
13時
1 p.m. Before I got on that phone call, what time had it been back when I was browsing the Ayase stuff on that channel? I tried using my brain. The stabbing pain coursing through it got even worse. Think. The time. Remember the time. It could have been... Yeah, it hadn't been noon yet. Which meant...
1時間以上
I've been unconscious for over an hour?
気絶してた
Or maybe I've been sleepwalking, and I'd end up wandering off somewhere for an hour.
僕は
No, I'm not
無
a
遊病じゃな
sleepwalker.
い
I shook my head violently, trying to stop thinking about things that would make me sink back into negative bullshit. As I did so, my vision wobbled from the pain still hammering in my head. It was like a lump of lead was sitting in the middle of my skull. And when I looked at my PC monitor, I saw...
おい
Hey, what the
マジで
hell? No way. The hard disk dial was corrupted? You're kidding me.
嘘だ
There's no way.
そんなの
Is
あ
this
り
for
えない
real?
あっちゃダ
It's
メ
the end
だ
of
そんな
everything.
ことになったらすべてが終わ
This is
る
where I stored my giga-sized collection of art. Shut up. My Roque save data. All my bookmarks for sites I browse daily. My minimum attendance chart. And the thing I treasured most. My ESO save data. You're telling me everything's gone?
くそ
I wanted to cry out in frustration. I wanted to smash my keyboard in anger. I wanted to kick the wall with everything I had. Before I did anything, though, I needed to check if I could restore it. But my whole body was still heavy, and my headache refused to go away. All I could do was bite my lip and sink deeper into my chair. It was over. My life was over. Losing my ESO data meant I had no reason left to live. Nothing mattered anymore. It had all burned away. Just kill me.
待って
Nice, Taki.
With an angelic smile on her face, Seraton gently called for me from atop my desk.
冷静になりなよ
Cool your jets. Since ESO's an online game, shouldn't the save data all be on a server somewhere?
セーブデータは全部サーバーに
By
保存さ
server,
れてるんじゃ
you
ない
mean
の
the dev server?
だから
So even if your computer did kick the bucket, Naga's data should still be on the server, righto?
Oh, you're right. I'm so dizzy and confused I've forgotten even the basics. Felt like I finally found a ray of hope shining through the endless despair. I knew I could depend on my waifu. Still have to give up on my treasured pics and MP3s that I hadn't backed up, though. I need to start reformatting the OS as quickly as possible. I wanted to see with my own two eyes that my ESO data was safe. Though in order to do that, the headache that was still torturing me had to stop. Unfortunately for me, the pain didn't feel like it would be going anywhere anytime soon. Alright, who are we looking at now? Oh god. There was rarely ever a moment in which the screens of Shibuya Station were not colored with advertisements, video clips, or music videos from the latest popular artists. And yet currently, the screens were instead displaying a female anchor with a grave expression on her face. It was an ongoing special TV broadcast. Sensational words decorated the top left of the screen. S1 SI5 earthquake in Shibuya. Over 200 casualties! Jeez, oh Pete. Earthquakes were not particularly unexpected in Japan. The Tokyo metropolitan area had already fallen victim to several seismic intensity 5 earthquakes over the years. However, as the media gathered more and more information about the incident, the sheer number of casualties made it clear that this was no ordinary earthquake. It was especially peculiar when compared to the 2005 earthquake, also seismic intensity 5, where no fatalities had been reported. Why did this... What's going on? Moreover, the epicenter of Shibuya, a city which was already the center of attention... A city The epicenter was Shibuya, a city that was already the center of attention in Japan due to the New Gen incident. There had already been an earthquake in Shibuya approximately 3 months prior. It was a seismic intensity 3 quake, and 8 people had died. Maybe Shibuya's cursed. That was what the people observing the breaking news about the latest earthquake were thinking, even if they were not saying it aloud. In any case, each station had started their special broadcast right when the earthquake hit. Information was having trouble circulating, and the total death count was still unclear. Nonetheless, the female anchor continued to report. Reading from its stack of papers, she declared, "The Fire and Disaster Management Agency has confirmed 31 deaths, and that number is expected to rise as they continue to aid those affected. The causes of death remain unknown, but furthermore, various reports described a mysterious white light appearing immediately after the earthquake had hit. According to these reports, the light had been accompanied by a massive shockwave and it had turned the sky completely white. The camera spread across Shibuya's scramble crossing had caught the aforementioned light on tape, and, after the earthquake ended, nothing but pure white footage was displayed on loop on the jumbotrons located there. The discoloration that had appeared alongside the earthquake had not simply been a dull white, however. It had been utterly blinding. Shibuya had been momentarily enveloped in light, the sheer glare forcing each and every residence to eye shut. So why did this happen? I wonder, did a huge delusion just become reality? I'm starting to wonder if some sort of delusion became reality just now. Something so big that it caused this much of a shift in reality. If this were an era of war, the people would have undoubtedly believed it would have come from a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, there were some who claimed to have spotted a white mushroom cloud floating a few hundred meters above Shibuya, though it was quick to vanish. No one knew what the origin of that light was, nor if it was connected to the earthquake. And then, just as mysteriously as its arrival, the white sky had returned to its original color in less than an hour, and now a dull light blue lay above the people of Shibuya. The asphalt of Dogonzaka was very slightly cracked, its damage only millimeters wide. And the multi-tenant buildings, together with many other structures along Center-Guy, had all grown small crevices across their walls. That's bad. Oh, hey, wow, you set this up fast. The reform of my OS had taken nearly 2 hours to finish, and yet my headache still hadn't gone away. I had even lost consciousness a few times from the pain. I'd passed out on my keyboard from exhaustion before, but today was the first time I'd literally passed out. On the plus side, though, the pain was way more bearable now than it had been 2 hours ago. I wet my throat with some cola, and then, summoning all my energy, stood up. I fixed my broken bed and made it level again. I then cleaned my floor to the extent that I'd be able to walk around. It took a lot of effort to do because of how weak I was feeling, but it had to be done. I wouldn't have been able to leave my own room otherwise. If Shogun were to attack again, not that I actually knew if it was him at this time, I would have been trapped and unable to escape. In other words, I'd be completely fucked. I had to secure an escape route or else. Once I'd finished reformatting my OS and cleaning my room, I went straight to the PC, installed ESO, and tried logging into Baselord. He's still there!
Yeah,
It worked. It worked! My heart isn't gone. My items and equipment are all here. Oh, thank God. Thank God. Yippee! Some move that I tried to get up and pump my fist in the air, but even that took too much energy, so I gave up halfway through. I couldn't have been more happy to see my other self alive and well. I thought he was gone forever. Okay, time for the next step. While it was definitely a huge load off my shoulders, I still wanted to try and figure out exactly what had happened, not to mention demand compensation and a formal apology. Who are you going to complain about an earthquake to? It seemed like an earthquake, but there were way too many things that didn't add up if it were true. I looked for Grimm inside Baselord, but he was nowhere to be found. I went to check the chat room, but since I'd lost my bookmarks, I had trouble finding it. When I eventually did, though, I discovered that Grimm wasn't there either. Of all the times for him to have gone AWOL, why now? With no options left, I had no choice but to head straight to Taboo itself. On it, I found the following article. Over 200 casualties in Shibuya. Over 200 casualties, 300 persons injured. Yeesh. As though there really had been an earthquake. It had been a seismic intensity 5 quake, and loads of people had died. The casualties were currently set at 200, but the article stated that the number may even go beyond that. There are also reports of Shibuya's skies turning white for a short period of time, as well as a giant mushroom cloud, though no one knew if either of those were connected to the earthquake. The earthquake was also being discussed on that channel, with people posting things like more Shibuya stuff, or Shibuya is over, or whatever else. There was also a video uploaded on there showing footage of Scramble Crossing that had been taken from its various surveillance cameras.
これ
This wasn't just an earthquake, right? When it happened, I'd been hit with a terrible headache, and it wasn't just your normal headache. I felt like my head was boiling. And even now, almost 2 hours later, I was still experiencing throbbing pain and fatigue. Why do I get the feeling there's about to be a mass psychosis episode going across all of Shibuya in this game? I just get this strange feeling.
電子レンジ
I
に
get the
閉じ込
feeling
め
that
られたら
maybe that's how you'd end up if you got stuck in a microwave. I just get the feeling that the people who were starting to foam at the mouth are going to wake up and they're going to become psychotic. That's the feeling I'm getting. If I thought about it that way, my delusion that Shogun was going after me with the EM wave attacks might not have been so far-fetched. Oh! Right at that moment, I heard a familiar sound coming from my PC. It was a notification tone that played whenever someone entered the chat room. Grim might have joined. I wanted to get the full story of what happened, so I opened the chat room. It's gonna be Shogun. Yep. And when I saw the name, a shriek escaped my mouth. Hang on. Show... with a U... Wait, hang on. S-H-O-U-G-U-N? Wait, this is someone different. This is not the same Shogun. It's spelled different. What the heck? No, this isn't the same. What was with this timing? Could he actually read my mind after all? The hand I was using to hold the mouse was trembling. My entire body was frozen in fear, overriding even my headache. Just looking at Shogun's name made me feel sick, but I couldn't look away. I wanted to close the chat room, but I was in such a state of shock, my mind and body felt like they'd been ripped apart. I tried desperately to move the mouse, but my body simply refused to listen to me. I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I was being watched. God's gaze. Or maybe it wasn't God. Maybe it was Shogun's gaze, being shot down from an orbiting satellite. This is not the same Shogun, though. They're different spellings. Just leave me alone. I wanted to run away. But where would I run? It didn't matter where I went. Even if I went to the very edge of Japan, he'd still catch me. It's been a long time. The first thing Shogun said to me, he said it like he was just casually saying hello to a friend he hadn't seen in a while. But I knew for a fact I had never, ever considered this guy a friend. My teeth sank into my lip as I stared at the words written across the monitor. However, instead of making me freeze out of fear, the message from Shogun instead sent me grabbing my phone. It was past 3 p.m. at this hour. At this hour, classes were probably still in session. But surely my situation wasn't hopeless. If Rimi was here, she could do something. That's what I wanted to believe. I went to my address book, although it wasn't much of a book considering how empty it was, and called Rimi's phone number. Save me, Rimi. Do you hate me?
Rimi,
Rimi,
早く
pick up. It was hard to breathe. I couldn't think straight. Rimi wasn't picking up. There was no voice on the other end, only the monotonous dialing sound repeating endlessly. Why? Whenever I'm in trouble, you're always there for me, so why weren't you answering? I have a present for you. A present? Please don't. You're gonna send me some more disgusting shit? And this time you're gonna blame me for it. You're gonna pin me as the new gen culprit. No, anything but that. It's not me. I'm not the culprit. I felt like a fish that had been ripped out of water. I was losing oxygen. My mind was going fuzzy. My only ray of hope left was Rimi. I grasped my phone tighter and tighter, praying with all my might to the other end of the call. She picked up. Save me. Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. I hope it pleases you. Voicemail. That couldn't be. Discouraged, I hung up the phone. I wrapped my arms around myself. Before I knew it, my body had started trembling. I was more afraid of Shogun than I thought I was. But why wouldn't I be? He was a homicidal maniac posing as a handicapped person, and he already committed 5 unspeakable crimes. I was the next one in his sights. Somebody save me. So far, every time I'd murmur that, Rimi would show up with perfect timing, and yet despite that, she wasn't picking up the phone. My gaze wandered around the room, eventually landing on the fake D-sword leaning against the corner. I grabbed it and held it in my hand, clinging to the little hope I had. It was just a toy. Ayase had assured me of that. But I wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance. As long as I had a D-sword, I could be saved. I could even strike back against Shogun's attacks. So please, I beg you. I held up the D-sword and focused on the tip. Please become real. Please save me.
D-sword.
Feel your true form. Closed my eyes tightly and directed all my strength into the hand grasping the hilt. Silence. I slowly opened my eyes. Nothing had changed. It was just a toy. Damn it! Damn it, you useless piece of shit! I violently threw the toy sword on the floor and began to pace around my room. Biting my nails, I searched through my possible options. I was so overwhelmed by terror I couldn't even think straight. I tried to think harder, but my head started hurting again, so there was nothing to do but go back to the computer. Shogun had already left the chat room. All that remained were those 4 lines. I didn't want to see any of it, so I hurriedly closed the chat room while Shogun wasn't in. My body was still trembling. Shogun was trying to provoke me. Was it fun fucking with me like this? Had I been chosen as the next victim and this was a means to that end? Or was I just the perfect person to pin his crimes on? Someone save me. Save me, please. I stared at the post-awakening version Seraton as if I was clinging to my only refuge. Being alone is scary. I didn't want to be alone. I want someone to be by my side. I want someone to protect me. Right. There's school. If I go to school, Rimi will be there. I couldn't bear staying alone with my spiraling anxiety. I took off my worn-out sweatshirt that I usually wore around the house and threw on my uniform and left the base. I think we're... Oh, wrong button. I think we're going to go ahead and end it here for today. So, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed and hope to see you all later.
Peace.